Okay, first video. Let's see how it goes. So, Goblins. The little green shits we all know and love. These guys tend to be the father of most, if not all our loving campaigns. They either look like a feral 5-year-old or the urban definition of a short sec, but they don't really get to shine that much more than what the table of random encounters allows. So what do you do if your party decides to investigate more about the goblin raid that happened? Well, let's see if I can help with that. Mind you, I'm not going to talk about the lore of the goblins, just some key features and ideas to keep in mind when using goblins as a DM. This is meant to fit in any of your campaigns, regardless of the story that you're building. So, with that said, let's make a quest. Imagine with me in the theater of the mind. As your party is attempting to leave the town, have a walk through the woods, hold hands and talk about their feelings at night. Bam! Goblin raid. Now, what we do have in the monster manual is not much. A regular goblin and a goblin boss. The goblins can hardly be much of an encounter if they are not on the defensive with traps on their side. But that's okay. In this instance, the goblins are meant to lose. And even if they don't, that's even better. You'll see. Let's say the first encounter can be 2d4 goblins and a goblin boss. Goblins are not killers. Well, I mean, they do kill. But you see, that's not their main thing. They are enslaved. I probably should not sound so happy saying that. This means they are prepared for capturing helpless humanoids. And on the side, they take whatever they can. But you should know that they are not expecting resistance. They only attack if they feel confident that they can win. Once they see their companions being slashed to oblivion, at the beginning of initiative, 1d4 goblins would run away, and the boss goblin would call for aid if it does not feel confident. Give it a horn. Make it call for wolf riders to pick them up, so that they can run away. This encounter is meant to be easy and simple. Either the goblins die a horrible death, or your party faints and hopes for the best. Some goblins may escape, but other than getting punished back to the tribe, they're not gonna be much of an influence. But we all know what's gonna happen as soon as your party wins. If they win.
I, Sir Beltimont meant, loot the goblin.
I loot the goblin. Give me that shit.
One of my biggest issues that I have with how goblins are used most of the time is the loot. You either get a rusty scimitar or a crappy shortbow with questionable arrows. You could argue that it does poison damage due to tetanus, that or it's smeared in poop. The point is, looting should always feel rewarding for the players. And given that goblins aim for capturing and not killing, I have decided to make this handy-dandy list of items for all of you. It even has different lists for special goblins. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to download it. All of the items in the list are useful in their own particular way, and they all make some sort of sense as to why they're there, or so I believe. Regardless, now your party has a reason to actually loot the goblin. Sorry, buddy. If your party decides to keep one as a hostage, that's great. You basically have a free expo dump NPC. I mean, goblins will say fucking anything to spare their lives. Oh, what's that? You don't know what this random new NPC is called? List of names, baby. Okay, but what if the party loses? Well, they just got a one-way ticket to Goblin Camp. Woo, yeah! This is what I've been waiting for, woo! What's that? Death saving throws? Nah. Once again, these goblins are meant for capturing. So it would make sense to me that they hold a brew that kind of replicates the effects of Spare the Dying. If your party loots them, it's a great early game potion. Just be sure to make it taste like shit. Goblins are nasty, boy. Now we get to the good part. Either by investigating the corpses, talking to your new hostage friend, or whatever other reason that you come up with, they will learn the motives of the raids. That's right, guys. Goblins do have motives for these raids. They have jobs too, you know. A family to feed. The more you know. The motive could be almost anything. But if you want to stay true to the goblin aesthetic, it could be religion, war, a higher entity. Just remember that there's always something pulling the strings of the entire tribe. And if any of you nerds feel lazy, I made another one of those damn tables that you guys like. This one is made with my ideas for potential motives, but feel free to give them whatever motive you want. Just remember, there's always a purpose. Always. Always. Regardless, your party now knows that there's a goblin tribe nearby, and they have to do something about it. If not, the attacks will continue. Moral dilemma. Funny thing about goblins, they have an actual hierarchy in their society. They usually divide in 4 groups: the paria, the gatherers, the hunters, and the lashers. Paria are bottom feeders. Imagine the dumbest goblin you possibly can. Add a to the side, which they hit with a stick every now and then because violence is funny. They are literally useless. They don't do shit. Gatherers tend to be the ones that do the most menial and lesser tasks. They are most likely the ones that you fought before. Hunters, on the other side, are the ones that you should start fearing. Imagine with me, a toddler with rabies, holding a rusty knife, coming towards you at an alarming speed on top of a wolf that may also have rabies and maybe also a knife. Yeah. These are the kind that would start using works instead of wolves, you know? This kind of weird creatures.
What the fuck? Works can actually speak Goblin in common too?
Hola.
Then we have the lashers. This kind of goblins tend to be the ones that have a more specific job on the tribe. A more specific function. Like knowing how to work with metal, or maybe how to make whips, how to domesticate wolves, whatever, you get the idea. This also includes any sort of casters that they would have, which are properly called Booyah! The book even says that if you hear Booyah 3 times, be very wary of what's to come.
Booyah, booyah, booyah!
Also, quick note. In Bolo's Guide to Waifus, you get a nice table that shows status symbols that goblins may be wearing to differentiate among each group. You can use that, or just make sure that there are obvious details that your players can see to distinguish each goblin group. Makes it easier to identify their power level and yada yada. Give one of them a stupid hat.
Intermission time!
Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba-dum.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Do you put the pain in painting miniatures? Well, do I have something for you?
I really love making miniatures for my own games, and I wanted to share that with you guys. So I made a Patreon where you can get them and support me if you feel like it. The theme this month is Goblins, of course. The plan is to update the content monthly, and that's it. Be sure to check it out. Okay, that's it. Back to the video. Bye! So, Scenario 1. The group attempts to sneak into the tribe's stronghold. Goblins are adept trap makers, and the road will be plagued with them. Make them simple though. Imagine snares, pitfalls with spikes. Don't make it too complicated though. It's not like they are supreme engineers yet. You could even pull a Bioshock, and if they roll a high enough perception check, maybe they get to see one that has already been triggered. Sub-scenario 1 would be them attempting to fight their way through to the entrance. Doable, yet a poor choice. But hey, we can still turn it around with ease with scenario number 2. Scenario 2. Your party got defeated by the first raid, or by scenario 1. It matters not. They'll wake up in the Goblin Camp in a prisoner's wharf. The cages could be made out of wood, leather cords, and maybe some metal, and of questionable quality. They may be good with traps, but they're not very good at building. Poor souls, they never got to play Sims. I'd say a DC 15 to break through the cage would be more than enough.
And thus, you have made it to the Goblin Camp.
Now, Goblin strongholds can literally be anything, and I do mean it. The book says that they prefer a 3-room cavern or something, but whatever place they find mildly habitable, they look at it and go, "It's free real estate." Heck, here, have a list of options that sound cool. On top of that, we can add flavor by sprinkling special locations. Remember, there's a motive. The book even states that whenever the goblins have a win, they must party like there's no tomorrow. Imagine kinda like the situation in Baldur's Gate 3. This could make the dungeon crawl more interesting, as each lasher is on their quarters getting wasted, but you could go classic Zelda dungeon style and have them hold the key to the next room. Here, I'll add the Beastmaster stat block as a type of lasher that you could use. Let's add the Booyah. because everybody needs a friend. Now there are only the king and the queen left, right? There are no other goblins left, so we better go straight to the ending, right?
Wrong!
We got the best boy right here. Look at this distinguished gentleman. The Nilbog. Goblin backwards. Literally a jester. No, I am not biased, shut up. Anyway, these guys are left to do whatever they want, and are downright hilarious to use. Cause at early levels, they almost can't fucking die, and they only want to have a good time. I just love these dudes. Little agents of chaos and fun. Kinda like the goose from Untitled Goose Game, now that I think about it. Now, before we head into the final encounter, we do have to recognize that the party should be able to rest at some point. And it would be a tad bit complicated since they are in the middle of the enemy bastion. Let me give you the oldest trick in the book to be able to pull this off. The supreme way to build plot and intrigue. The traitor. Traitor! Goblins are power-hungry little megalomaniacs, so it stands to reason the idea of one of them wanting to take over the role as leader. It could even be a work for all I care. Just have some drama. Here, have another one of those sables for potential traitors. If you feel like it. This now ally NPC could guide them to a secret room where they can replenish themselves and plan their last assault. Maybe escape to come back later until the wizard learns Fireball. Here we are, final encounter, Goblin King / Queen, and this guy is an asshole. No, really, they are nasty. They should be the most repulsive fuckers you can imagine. Manipulative and derogatory, prone to anger, any toxic aspect you can imagine, they got it. Just picture a white boy named Kyle chugging energy drinks and punching in drywall, and now make that into a king. In this encounter, you should prioritize the idea that this guy thinks he or she is the ruler of the world, and everybody is beneath him or her. Now you see this thing right here on the Goblin boss, we're gonna abuse the fuck out of that. I imagine the Goblin King / Queen would be constantly surrounded by hunters, so it could redirect almost if not all attacks. I don't think he would be meant to have a lot of HP, but rather make it really hard to actually land a hit. Also, I don't imagine his moveset would be centered around him dealing damage, more about controlling the goblins around to force them to deal the damage. I would even say that legendary actions would be necessary here. I'll leave a stat block among the rest of the files down below that you can use as inspiration if you like. And there it is. You have a nice final boss fight for this side quest. It's done. It's finished. But if you were to ask me, I'd make the Goblin King stand atop a giant tower-like throne built of questionable structures. Atop the throne, a Goblin Guardian, that is to say a Goblin boss wielding a giant-ass shield, well, I guess a regular-sized shield for their stature, regardless. It would attempt to protect the king while it shoots with its crossbow and lashes with a whip. At its side, I would add a 1v4 Paria Goblin. They are not meant for combat, just as fodder for the skills and maybe to give him a juice box and fun him while the battle unfolds. Beneath the Tower of Crap, I'd say 2 hunters with wargs fight the party. Maybe even one of them is one of the lashers that they left alive. At the top of initiative, I would add 1v4 Goblin Paria, spread around the field that they could be used as shields. Optional, at mid-initiative, have a layer action dex save, or the party gets 1d4 blunt damage from stones thrown by other goblins in the surrounding tunnels and shit. Maybe even give the king a ring of vampiric touch it can use to drain the goblin party and replenish some of its health. Too much? Maybe? So I ended up adding a magic item table on the file as well because I'm a masochist. If you do use any of this and want to tell me of the results of the game, please do. Here's my Twitter and Instagram and anything you need to contact me and stalk me. So yeah, this was my first attempt at making a video about anything. If you would like me to speak about any of the creatures or how to make a quest around them, let me know. Write a comment. So, I don't know, subscribe. Whatever they say. I just hope you guys liked it. Remember to drink tea and, I don't know, give your pet some pats on the head on my behalf. Bye!